Hi, it's Rosa, and I'm here to switch course on my YouTube channel. I don't want to do any more videos about a weight loss vlog. I'm done with that. And instead, I'd like to talk to you about my favorite Marvel shows. I'm not really a fan of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., but I really like the shows that they put out on Netflix, starting with Daredevil, which would definitely be my #1 favorite because, well, for one thing, it was the original. It was the first Marvel show that they put on Netflix, and it had a really slow start, but I liked that. I like that they took the time to really develop Matt Murdock's character and the world that they were in, and that opening title sequence was phenomenal. Now, obviously, there's a lot more to the show than the opening title sequence. However, it really set the tone as to how much thought was put into it on every level, from the score to the fact that they got the creators of the opening title sequence for Game of Thrones to make the one for Daredevil, and it was just beautiful how it showed like a vision of a portrait developing in an unconventional way, just like Daredevil sees the world through his sense of hearing. And I really thought that that was an interesting take on it. I didn't really like Karen Page at all until season 2. I hated her in combination with Matt Murdock. I loved the introduction of the night nurse, Claire. She was phenomenal, and I love how she is incorporated into every show, and I think she's the best part of every Marvel show on Netflix. So she's definitely my favorite. Season 2 of Daredevil was I've got to say, it was my favorite season that they've done so far because of the discussion that Matt had with the Punisher about justice and about, do we kill the bad guys or do we turn them over to the system? And I think that that's a really important and relevant discussion that needs to be had right now, especially because our justice system in America is really messed up because there are people involved and people mess things up. But the question is, how much do we let people get away with, and when is enough enough? But at the same time, with the death penalty being so unjustly enforced, we have a lot of, outcry of injustice there too. So obviously there was no answer really in the end of season 2. I think Daredevil and Punisher team up, and Matt's like, we're gonna do it your way, just this one time, okay? And I think that really carried over into the Punisher series, which is one of the more recently made Marvel shows, but would be my #2 favorite because it does continue that discussion about justice. He does pursue it from a position of revenge and wanting personal revenge against people who could not be punished any other way through our justice system because they were above the system. So I think it was a really interesting moral dilemma that was explored, and considering the fact that the Punisher storyline is usually really gritty and just all about blowing things up, I think they did a great job of developing his character, assessing the PTSD aspect, as well as questions that we all kind of have as we go through our society as to what is just and what is fair, and what is the part that we should play in it, what's the part that government should play in it, and do we even have a government system that can enforce it? So and also, I love the Punisher and Karen Page together. I love how they wrote Karen Page in the Punisher series, and I really hope that they continue that on. I know the actress who plays Karen has said that she has had to remind them in Defenders and in filming the next Daredevil season that her characters had all this development, and they need to not drop her because she really was not written as well in Daredevil as she was in the Punisher. And my shipper heart really loves the Punisher and Karen Page. I think they're adorable. So let's see, my #3, yes, I made notes. Because if you're going to be a nerd, you should be a committed nerd. I wanted to say Luke Cage season 1 would be my third favorite. I love Luke Cage as a character. I love his relationship with Claire, a lot better than Claire with Matt Murdock. I like what they did with Luke Cage in season 2 as well. I love all the original music, how they made it as authentically black as they did, and they were very intentional about that. There's some great representation there. I loved how he's just trying to be a good guy and do the right thing most of the time, and then in season 2, that whole, is he going to bend the rules to get things done? Did the ends justify the means? I love shows that have that as a discussion because I feel like it's always a question. It's not as simply answered as we would like it to be in black and white. As lots of comics, especially for kids, you've got your black and white villain, you've got your good versus evil, you know who's who, but that's not real life. Real life people are all messed up, we're all complicated, and I love how Luke Cage brings that out. I love how all the Marvel shows have brought that out, but I think that his character has been really well written in that regard. Next up is Jessica Jones. I don't like Jessica Jones because she has a bad attitude. So it doesn't appeal to me. I watch the show because I like the Defenders storyline. I like how they're bringing it together like the Avengers, and I don't want to be out of the loop. So I finished the seasons for closure, and that's kind of my modus operandi, is once I get something started, I really need that closure or it's gonna just nag at the back of my mind. So Jessica Jones, the season 1 with Kilgrave was phenomenal. And I use that word a lot, but I mean, David Tennant is a phenomenal actor, and he brought a lot to the Purple Man character. I don't read the comics. I don't know things other than what my comic book buddies tell me. So Kenny Shipp and Trevor Law, this is your fault. Listening to you guys talking about comics in college and beyond has ruined me for life. But I still will never read a comic book, probably ever. But as far as Jessica Jones goes, I loved their title sequence. Again, the music was very appropriate for the private eye, and I love how they incorporated her spying into different buildings. It was very appropriate for her storyline. It was also made by women, so if you're gonna do a female-centric superhero thing, I like that. I liked Malcolm's story arc, and that they didn't make every man in the show detestable, but I felt like in season 2 sucked. It was poorly paced, and the writing was just, I don't know, there's just too many girls. I like equality. I don't like too much of an imbalance, and I just felt like season 1 of Jessica Jones did a really good job with the whole, like, she felt bad for killing somebody, but then in the end she had to kill Kilgrave, and so she was technically a murderer, and she struggled with that a lot in season 2, but it just would drag out so long, and it's just boring when you're your own villain. And anyway, but I still obviously liked that better than Iron Fist, which gets the lowest ranking from me, and that would have to be because I felt like it had so much potential to be epic. Daredevil was epic, even though it was a contained story, and the setting was realistic. I love stories with dragons, and I feel like they really could have made Iron Fist a more compelling, epic saga type story, and instead we get a hero who's confused, doesn't know what he's doing. He betrays his destiny after achieving this great feat and becoming the Iron Fist. He betrays his people, and then they all get killed, like, loser. And then we spend half the season learning about the family who stole his dad's business, which, like, I love that Faramir. I love the actor who played Faramir from Lord of the Rings, who is like our villain for the series, but I mean, good job acting, man, but I could have done without basically the whole storyline. It could have been succinctly summed up in one episode. So I wish they hadn't wasted so much time on that. I kind of went out of order because I want to rank Defenders above Iron Fist. So I loved the combination of Defenders. They had great fight sequences. As far as my favorite fight sequences, they would be in Daredevil. I love the hallway scene. In season 1, it was all filmed in one take, and it was impeccable, and the score was, I mean, the thought that went into that, the choreography, the skill with the camera, the fighting, it was all well choreographed. Iron Fist didn't have that. So we have this this kung fu master who doesn't have as great fight scenes as Daredevil, who's just, you know, not supposedly as magical. So that was kind of disappointing. And the opening title sequence, I think, was a good representation of how much Iron Fist fell flat, because you have this great CGI, you have the Iron Fist up against the backdrop of New York City, and he's doing some cool looking moves, and they could have like had him do moves that like painted different characters, or something like they did in Marco Polo, where the ink kind of fades into a picture, but instead it just looped around and made a mess, and it looked like somebody just got really lazy, had a deadline, and were like, you know what, we got to finish this before Defenders because we have a deadline. And so it looked like somebody procrastinated before their assignment was due, and so it was disappointing. The whole thing was disappointing. I'm really looking forward to Punisher season 2 when it comes out, and I like how they're going to continue the discussion of the implications of his actions now that he has exacted vengeance on the people who did his family wrong and did him wrong. Now he's got to deal with copycats in the next season. And I believe, from what I've heard of the spoilers, it's going to be people who are like disgruntled with the justice system, and so they're going out to exact their own vengeance, but they're hurting a lot of people and causing a lot of collateral damage, and so he has to go take out his copycats. So I think that, you know, he's an anti-hero. Punisher's an anti-hero. We're not celebrating him because we want to copy him, or because that is the way to go, and I think we're gonna see that in season 2 played out fully, that his behavior is not being endorsed. While we can understand where the motive came from, it is not endorsed, and it's not the answer, and it's not going to solve problems in the real world. It'll only stir up more trouble. So leave me some comments and let me know what you think, what your favorites are, if you would rank these differently. I have Daredevil as my number 1, and Punisher is number 2, Luke Cage is number 3, Jessica Jones is 4, Defenders is 5, and then Iron Fist is 6th. And so let me know what you think, if you agree or disagree philosophically about the justice conversation, or if there are different aesthetic things that are more important to you when you're choosing to watch shows. So, alright, have a good night. The crickets are out.